Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, Keith and Suzanne Pulham, to the Roots and Branches podcast of Lehi. We're excited to have you on and excited to get to know you a little bit better. You guys are, you wearing name badges, so you're currently on a mission right now, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And where are you at right now?
We're serving in the Heber Valley Camp mission, which is just above the church property, just above Heber.
Okay. And you've been doing that for how long now?
We
Since
moved up to Wasatch County Fairgrounds on the 8th of April.
Okay.
Spent a week there, and then we moved our trailers up on to the actual camp on the 16th of April.
Okay. Up there, it's been a little bit of colder weather, right? So maybe...
It's been cold and snowing.
Yeah, cold and snowing. Mm-hmm. So, but hey, welcome to Utah, right? Mm-hmm. So now let's backtrack a little bit. Are you both from Lehi, or tell me where you guys are from as far as...
We are both from Lehi.
Okay.
We grew up together.
Grew up together.
We've known each other since we were probably 3.
Okay. That's a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
60 years.
60 years, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm guessing Lehi was a little different back then.
Yes.
A little smaller. Mm-hmm. Did you guys live by each other?
We were in the same ward
for
a while, and then the wards got split.
Okay.
And it went down his street, and so then he was in the 8th ward, and I was in the 14th ward.
Okay. But you still remain friends, still,
We grew up together.
Yeah, doing different things. Okay, perfect.
We were in the same grade school class every other year at Lily Elementary.
Okay, nice. That's awesome. Now, so this year you've been nominated as the Grand Marshals of the Lehi Roundup Rodeo, week here, right? So tell me how that happened and give me a little background on that, I guess.
Of how we came to be nominated?
Yeah, how did you get nominated? A lot of people don't understand, they just, randomly pick somebody, how does that process happen?
People nominate people in the city, in the town, that think that they have contributed to Lehi City.
Okay.
And since we both have lived here all our life, that we have been very involved in the community. And so, my volunteer started back when I was 12. I did build a float with my family, and it was really fun because during this time when it would be baseball season, you would go down to Vets Park, and people would have sacks or bins, and we would all fluff pom-poms while we watched baseball.
Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And you made pom-poms.
Yeah.
The floats were really designed and crafted with pom-poms.
Okay.
And that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
And so, but I've built many floats through my years.
I'm sure. Yeah. Long time to keep doing them and stuff like that, right? So that's awesome.
It really brings the community together.
Yeah.
The wards are the ones that build the floats.
Yeah.
And so then you call on your neighbors and ward members, and they come over to your garage where you got the float, and everybody is working on the float and, bring something to share to eat or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just have good conversation, and you laugh, and the kids are running around, and it's good fun.
Just good community. I like that.
Yeah.
Did you get to participate too, Keith, I guess, in that?
I didn't build particularly, but I did pull a lot of floats as a young man.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So,
good. Good.
Yeah, I got to participate. We used to have a lot of bicycles that would ride in the parade, the kids' parade.
Yeah.
And I rode in quite a few of those parades as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So As far as, talking about Lehi Roundup Week and stuff like that, do you guys have any favorite memories from that time? I mean, obviously it's a, big part of the city and stuff like that. You've been through many of them over the years. How have you seen that change? And then, like I said, any memories that you have of that week, I guess, that stands out to you?
It's one of our favorite weeks of the year. We love everything, all the activities. We enjoy going to them, and then the rodeo has always been one of our favorites. We've always gone to the rodeo. And my grandma, back when I was growing up, she always liked to be early to all the plays and everything. She lived here in Lehi. Mm-hmm. And so she would purchase the tickets, and we would always be on the south bleachers on the very top. Okay? So that's where I grew up sitting, was clear up there. Well, it wasn't until I was married that we decided to go on the other side of the rodeo grounds to the other bleachers. And I'm like, why didn't Grandma come over here? Then we wouldn't have the sun in our eyes for all those years that we were growing up. So we sit over in H section now.
Gotcha. Okay.
And not over on the south side.
Yeah. Get that sun in your eyes and stuff like that. I like that.
And we love it. Our family has volunteered. We have our oldest son and his wife, Josh and Whitney. Mm-hmm. They're over one of the concession stands, and they run that, and they're on the rodeo committee. And so it's a family affair. Yeah. Our whole family attends.
Good. Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Keith?
I think just being a part of what's going on, we actually had a chance at building a new home, and our home is actually on the parade route, which was a big selling point for us.
Yeah.
So that we didn't have to try and find a seat.
Yeah.
The big changes is how big the parade has gotten.
Sure.
It used to be you didn't have to worry about getting your chair set up, and now if your chair's not set up a week before, you're going to have a hard time finding a place. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things. We have to stake out our whole front yard so that we don't.
Even your own yard.
Yeah, you have to make sure. Even our own yard. Otherwise,
hey, this is ours. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, don't take our spot.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay.
So, it's grown. It's that part of the growth of Lehi, I think, has been a great thing.
Yeah.
So it's just turned into quite the week.
Yeah, yeah. And so going back to what does being Grand Marshals entail? Tell me what have they. And maybe you don't know yet because you haven't done it yet. But tell me, have they described and said, okay, here's your day-to-day, here's what's going to happen?
The biggest things we will be in all of the parades.
Okay.
We will be one of the first through the parade. Obviously, the horse parade on Wednesday night, where there's no parade, we will be introduced at the rodeo, beginning of the rodeo. Actually, every night of the rodeo. Mm-hmm. So we will be there. Go around in the arena, and then the parades. We will be one of the first
in the
entries
lineup.
In the parades.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the biggest things.
That's awesome. Get to hand out candy to your own house, right? Kind of throw it on the lawn there. I guess,
there
right?
you go.
So you mentioned obviously you're both a part of Lehi, have been for a little while. Tell me what that's. What are some of the things you like most about Lehi? As far as the community that is here, that is Lehi and stuff.
There's, even though we're close to 100,000 now, there still is a lot of community togetherness, I think, which surprises us because this, like I said, the city's gotten big.
Yeah.
But yet, I think part of the reason is the city celebration.
Yeah.
I know that the floats, the miniature parade. There's only one other city in the state that has the miniature parade like that. Mm-hmm. And so I think getting everybody together and working on these floats, I think helps to keep the community closer together.
Yeah, I like that. Now, let's kind of switch gears a little bit. Let's go back in time here. So you had a painting business for a little while, is that right?
I am actually third generation.
Third generation, okay.
Yes, third generation painter. My grandfather started painting, and then my dad and uncle took over the business from him. And then I worked with that until 1997 when we decided to make the jump. Mm-hmm. and started our own painting business. And so that's where it's at today. We actually have our oldest son and our youngest son right now that are running the business and managing the business, and while we're on our mission. So.
And tell me, so third generation painter, and you know, I guess painting's broad. Tell me what you like. Is it just, tell me specifically what kind of painting are you guys doing?
We do a few homes every year.
Okay.
Right now we do a large amount of apartments.
Okay.
They're building massive amounts of apartments throughout the state.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of those, mainly commercial work.
Sure. Okay.
But we do some homes. We have, I think there's 6 or 8 LDS chapels.
Yeah.
That we're painting throughout the state.
And so was it always a given that you'd go into painting, you know, being third generation, or was that like, okay, yep, I guess that's what I'm doing, or tell me that process there.
No, I mean, I worked during the summer as a kid with my dad and my uncle and brother and stuff, and then I graduated from high school and had no intentions of going into painting. In fact, I had been accepted to BYU when I got home off my mission and came home off my mission and just slid into the painting and never left.
Yeah.
You know, that's, 44 years ago?
Good amount of time. Good amount of time.
Yeah, 42. So,
and
3.
Was that scary to start your own business and stuff?
Very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary. It was some pretty scary times as far as thinking if I had enough work and if I was going to be able to come get enough work. The Pulham name throughout the state of Utah had a great name for painting. Yeah. And so I made sure that my business had that Pulham name in it, which helped to carry us. We started doing homes for several years and then started moving into the small commercial work to the point now where we're doing quite large projects now. So,
any advice for anybody that's starting their own business that from based off your past experience, anything that stand out like from that experience?
You got to be prepared to work hard and work long hours. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a 8 to 5. It's not a and there's going to be Saturdays and there's going to be Yeah. I would work all day and then go home, and she had gone to contractor's office to get the plans, and then at night when I'd get home from work, I'd spread the plans out on the kitchen table and I'd have to figure the job and come up with that, and then she would take the plans back and with the bids and that kind of stuff. So 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. Yeah. So a lot of work in the beginning. Eventually, though, I guess the benefit is you've now built something that now you're able to retire off of, right? Too, yes. I guess. So that's, maybe the benefit of business, owning a business is that up front, a lot of work, but long term, a good benefit too. Right? It can be, yes.
It can be, yes.
It can be.
Yeah. Good.
Yep.
Good. And Suzanne, you said, where he referenced you a little bit. So you helped with the business, I guess, during that time?
I was the sidekick.
The sidekick.
We would, as our kids especially got older, they would help us. And so after school, whatever they were involved in, they would go to the practices and things like that. But I would take the girls and we would go prep out a house. So my daughters, little girls, would vacuum, be vacuuming, and I would be masking the windows and puttying. I did not caulk. My sons did the caulking. Okay. And then Keith would come in and spray it out, prime it, and then us as a family would go back in and sand. Sand the shelving, the trim, all of that, and get it ready so that Keith the next day could go in and start painting the trim. And then we would have to mask off the trim, because then that was when it was falling into the,
two-tone
and stuff,
or 3-tone, where the ceiling is different too. Yeah. And so what we ended up doing is I would make dinner and I would bring it to the house that we were working on, and us as a family would sit on paint buckets and put paint buckets in the middle and put our dinner on it, and we would sit in a circle, and that's where we ate dinner a lot.
Wow.
Was sitting on paint buckets.
So still together as a family, just at a
Still
random
together
house.
as a family. Yep.
I like it. And now you also, I don't know if this was at the same time or eventually worked at Wing Mortuary. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
As our business grew, and then our sons, when they came home off their mission, they had no intentions of painting. They had told us that before they left, and we were fine with that.
Sure. Yeah.
We didn't want them to do anything that they did not want to do for their career. And so, but when they got home, our oldest son Josh, he went and worked for a framing construction company and learned how to frame homes. And then our third son, Trevor, he came home and he went and worked for our neighbor and learned how to work heavy equipment. And he would develop subdivisions and dig the foundations, dig the holes for the foundations. And then he also did a lot of, like, at gas stations where they have to dig up the big tank.
Contaminated soil reclamation.
Contaminated soil. And he would do that as well. So he learned all of that. And then Josh, after a couple of years, decided that, you know what, maybe going and working with Dad isn't such a bad idea. And so he asked us if it would be all right if he came on board with us, and we told him yes. And then down the road, when Trevor got home off his mission and worked a while for Chad, then he kind of realized that as well, and he came on board. So when those two sons came on board, that just kind of exploded our business, because now we had two sons that could run different crews and different jobs, versus just having Keith do it.
Sure.
And so now we have almost 30 employees, painters. And so it's because of our sons that we've been able to move it in, to expand it. And they have done a wonderful job.
And so doing that obviously then allowed you to, I guess, find, I mean, you were like, okay, I'm not needed here, and you found different jobs?
They were the ones that pushed us to go on a mission. They said, you two need to go.
Okay.
And we will take care of the business. I was working at Wing Mortuary. Julia and Lenny Wing were our back door's neighbors through the field. And I also walked like 17 years. Julia and I were exercise partners. So we walked many miles. And one day while we on our walk, she said to me, I know you've been a secretary before, and Lenny is looking for another part-time secretary, because he had a part-time secretary, but he was getting more business. And so I said, yeah, sure. And our youngest was in 6th grade by then. And so I said, sure. So I went down and walked through she showed me the round in the mortuary, whatever, and I started May 1st, and that was 19 years ago. And I started working, and I was part-time. But then in the fall, the other secretary, Kayla, had a baby, and she decided not to come back to work. So Lenny asked me to go full-time, because he didn't want to hire another part-time, because it's a very technical business, because you have to be on top of everything that's going on with the families, everything that's going on with the arrangement of the funerals and the viewings, and it's a lot of work. And so it makes it so that you don't want to miss information going from one secretary to another secretary. And so I told him that I would, and thoroughly enjoyed working at Wing Mortuary. I loved serving the community, and I took care of a lot of Lehi families, and they loved it that when they walked in, there was a familiar face.
Sure, yeah.
And even those that, I didn't know, it takes kind of a certain person to be able to work at a mortuary. And you have to be very compassionate and very helpful, because they're grieving. They want answers. They want you to help them to get through this process that they got to go through. And so it really takes a certain kind of person to be able to work at mortuaries. And I learned a lot, and I loved serving the families, and I loved the whole thing. I pressed the clothes for the deceased.
Yeah.
I did the programs. I did death certificates. I was kind of the behind-the-scenes gal.
Sure.
I basically ran the mortuary because I took care of it. I would get a crew in there of young girls and Julia, and we would clean, spring clean, fall clean, the mortuary. And then, I'd get the carpet cleaners in, and then I also worked in the yard because I love yard work. And so when we had downtime, like, you wouldn't find me just sitting in the office. Sure. I was outside. I was working on the flower beds. I was mowing the lawn. I was doing everything to take care of that mortuary. Wow. And I never got asked to do it. I did it on my own just because I loved it. Yeah. So
one of the reasons she started working there was, yes, we had our business going, but we had two sons. Our youngest son and our middle son were on a mission together at the same time. Oh. So we needed a little more cash coming in to cover the two missions. And so that's when she started working at the mortuary. And so that kind of, that's kind of where it got started.
That makes sense. Yeah. No. Well, I love that, I think with both your jobs, you're obviously, we have to work to make money to provide for, our family, right? And stuff like that. But I like that with both those jobs, you're also very much a part of the community. I think that's what makes a community is, I mean, sure, we have to get paid, but like we also are doing something that contributes to society, that makes things better. Yes. Right? Which it sounds like, with all of your endeavors really has been that, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, which is good. Any before we leave your careers and stuff like that, any other experiences from your careers that, influenced how you saw the community or, that helped you with the community there?
Some of the experiences I had there at the mortuary was there was a lot of people that paid it forward. There was a couple that they had to bury their baby. And so after that, somebody had paid for that little baby's funeral, to buy the casket and stuff. And so they decided that they would do the same thing every year. Wow. And so I got to choose which family they got to help. And when the family would come in and I could tell it was a young couple, they'd been in the hospital, lots of hospital bills and things like that, then I would submit their name to this couple, and then they would pay for it. There has been a lot of people in the community, I wish I could name names, but they want to remain anonymous, that came in and either paid for their whole funeral or they put a substantial money down on it. And that happened quite often. Wow. And so it's a very compassionate community, and they really help people that are in dire straits. Yep.
Love that
and
stuff.
I was glad that I got to witness that, and I got to be a part of that.
Yeah, and help contribute to who got,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. Any other stories,
I remember one story, not necessarily me, but kind of my family in the painting business. There was a business here in town that burnt, and so when it came time to repaint the business, my dad and my uncle repainted the business. And when the owner came to say how much it was going to be, they said, you pay it forward or you take care of somebody else.
Love that. Yeah.
So that's kind of where, we've gotten that. And we try and help out as much as we can in the city.
Sure.
And do things.
Well, and you're continuing to do that now. So you're continuing to serve, not too far away from here, right?
No.
And obviously, Heber's not Lehi, but there's a lot of people from Lehi that go to the Heber, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to me about, that mission that you guys are on. What is your day-to-day experience up there at the Heber Valley Girls Camp?
Right now our zone is called the public safety zone. And so as the youth come up during the week, we greet them as they come up they have a little It's called the Welcome Center. We greet them as they come in, and we help them find out where they're going and that kind of stuff. And then we were over the tomahawk toss. There's 4 different stations for that, 4 different areas for that, and so our zone is split out between those 4 different stations. We're in charge of first aid stuff. There are 14 gates that have to be checked every day to make sure that we're not getting people coming in. We want to make sure that the young people are safe, and we're not getting strangers or stuff like that coming into the camp.
Sure.
So that's the kind of things that we do. So depending on the day, yesterday we were over the tomahawk throw. Actually, she was helping with the tomahawk throw, and I was helping paint the lines in the big parking lot, because it's a gravel parking lot.
Sure, yeah.
So it has to be painted every year. So I was helping paint the lines in the parking lot, and she was working on the tomahawk throw with 2 other couples. So that's kind of our day, depending on
what's needed, I guess.
What we're assigned particularly for the day.
Sure. You mentioned just painting lines. I doubt anybody pays any attention to that, and yet if they weren't, you'd notice, right? I mean, it's interesting how I think a lot of people forget what goes into running a camp, right? I mean, my own parents are actually doing the same thing right now, and hearing some of the things they do, it's like, wow, there's a lot that goes into prepping a camp for these young people. And I think a lot of people don't really realize how much goes in, how much work, how much effort to maintain these camps, to get it ready for them to have this spiritual good experience, right?
Yeah. So there are 124 couples.
Wow.
So and then there's some singles. So basically we have 250 missionaries up there.
Wow.
That for the last 6 weeks have been training and getting everything ready for this week.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And is this your first year doing this then?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, and we are called for 2 years.
For 2 years. Okay.
This actually became its own mission a year ago. We have a mission president.
Wow.
We're called as full-time missionaries.
Yeah.
Even though we only spend 6 months up there, we'll turn around and go back again next spring.
Wow. And if someone else is interested in serving this kind of mission, how do they go about that? Was this?
They would put their mission. You have to put your mission papers in just like anybody else.
Sure.
But there's a place on the mission application that you can specify Heber Valley Camp.
Okay.
But they'll also need to notify the mission president up there, President Pitcher, and he'll kind of keep track of where those papers are, so that he can help them go through.
Okay. Obviously you guys are missionaries right now. Tell me how your faith has kind of shaped your approach to working with family, doing service in the community, your own job, stuff like that. Talk to me about your faith and how that's influenced those different aspects of your life.
We've always been strong in the gospel of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints. And we had always knew that we wanted to serve a mission somewhere. And so we were grateful that we got this opportunity to do it now in our life. We've just have grown up in the gospel. That's just how it has been.
Yeah.
I mean, we did church clear back when it was Sunday school in the morning, and then you go home, and then you come back at 6 o'clock at night for sacrament meeting. And then, Wednesday was primary day, and, things like that. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And we had gold and green balls, and that's where the youth went. On a Saturday night, you could find out which church was in Lehi, and because word would get around at school where the gold and green ball was. And so then everybody would dress up in their gunny sack dresses, and we would all show up and have a great time. And those were really a highlight of us growing up.
Sure.
I don't know.
We grew up serving.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we both and taught our family to serve as well in the gospel, and serve the community and serve others. And so I've always, pretty much our whole married life, as far as my church responsibilities, have always been with the youth. And so when we decided to go on a mission, the obvious one was to Heber Valley Camp.
Sure.
Because we both wanted to serve with the young people. Mm-hmm. And so that's what kind of pushed us in that Heber Valley area.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so speaking about youth, so obviously you guys, talk about the world, or Lehi, specifically back, 50 years ago, right? And it sounds fun. I mean, all these good memories and stuff like that. What advice do you have for young families now that are growing up in today's world that's a lot more faster paced, lot more things going on and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for those youth that will soon be parents and and that are raising young families for this time?
I would say, well, we have 5 kids. While we were raising our children, we made sure that they knew that they were our main focus. When we did go out on our own, it was so that Keith could leave a job to go and support our kids doing swim meets. And he never missed a swim meet, never. And so our kids knew that whatever sport they chose, we would support them, and we would always show up. I think that is one of the biggest things that parents can do. Let your children pick what they want to be involved in, but you tell them, you're not going to sit home and just play video games. You are going to choose a sport or an activity or whatever that will get you involved in at the high school or junior high level, and we will support you. And I think that is one of the biggest things that parents can do, and let their kids know that that is very important to you. Another thing is as hard as it is, make sure, if at all possible, that you're having family dinner. I mean, yes, we had a lot of family dinner sitting on a bucket, but we had family dinner together. Make sure that that is a priority. And then we just always were together as a family. And I think that was really a big reason why our children, they did not get involved in drugs. They didn't go out partying. They just were well-rounded kids, and they chose good friends. It's not just the parents. I mean, they're influenced by their peers. And so if you're involved in their life and you can see kind of the direction that they're going with their friends, I mean, that helps them as well, So the more that you can be involved with your kids, the better off you'll be.
Love that. Keith, do you want to add to that?
One of the saddest things in my life is, in all the years in which I coach sports and the city league stuff, say I would have a baseball team, and I would have 14 kids on the team. There would be, on average, 7 to 9 kids that's parents would be there every game. And then you would have 1 or 2 kids that parents would show up maybe once or twice or 3 times in the season. And then you would have those kids whose parents never showed up. They used it as a babysitter. They'd bring their kid in, drop them off, and call it good. We'll come back when the game's over.
Sure.
One of the things that happened to us when our youngest son was 8 years old, I wasn't coaching him, I was coaching our oldest son at that year. I would rotate between the 3 boys and coach our daughters as well. He was on a team, and we had dropped him off and had a couple of errands to run. And I remember we told him we'll be back in time for the game, and we got to the Vets ball field, started walking in, and the game was just about to get started, and he was playing third base. And as I watched him standing right by that base, and he was just panning the crowd.
Looking for his parents.
Looking for mom and dad. And as soon as he turned and seen us, smile come on his face, and he says, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to go. He got down in the stance that he needed to be in. That sunk into me with so hard.
Sure.
Your kids need you. They don't need your money. They need you.
Yeah, love that. Showing up for your kids, being there for them.
Being for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I love that. So still talking about you guys here, any specific stories, and you've already shared several stories, so you can say, we've already done this. But, any specific stories or, from your marriage or, your time together that kind of speaks to you guys together as a couple. Obviously, you've worked together, you've played together, you've ate together. You're a good, strength couple, right? I mean, and any stories that stand out of how you were able to, to be so united, I guess, and to be, such a, strong couple. I mean, not everybody gets to know each other from age 3, right?
Right.
That's not everybody's story, but and not everybody that knows each other from age 3 stays as close to as you guys are, right? So I guess go ahead and tell me anything that stands out to you of what's been able to keep you guys, such a strong, united team.
We've always tried to make each other a priority along with our family, and we just vacations.
Sure.
Growing up, our vacation was going camping, and so we just basically did pretty much everything together. We supported our kids, we went camping, we involved in our church, we're involved in the community together. But I have a really great story with the community thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
When the oldest reached high school, then Keith went on board and was with the Booster Club. And, you served there and you served there, and then he eventually became president of the Booster Club. And then when his time was over with the president, then he was over special projects. And so his special project ended up being, he did over 20 years of the breakfast in the park, okay, and fed Lehi, during the parade,
Yeah.
okay. Well, this was a highlight for our kids, because this is when, there was 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers and stuff, and so that gave our kids permission that they could drive around on Lehi streets on a 4-wheeler and not get pulled over by a cop, because they were delivering the stoves and equipment to the park for the big breakfast. And they loved it.
Yeah,
They got up at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday
Wow.
to start gathering all of the stoves. And we had a list of people in Lehi that were willing to donate their stove, and some were on wheels. And so that's why we used the 4-wheelers. And they would go drive to the homes, pick up the stoves, and drive them to the park, and then go and get other ones. And they loved it. And there was not hesitation about getting up in the morning to go help Dad with the Booster Club breakfast, because they were willing to do that. And it was a family affair.
Yeah.
I didn't do that so much. I was serving on the parade committee, and I helped line up the parade and all the floats and all of that. So I didn't associate too much with the breakfast, because I was doing other things. And we just have always kind of liked doing the same things together.
Sure.
And we know it's very important to us to be able to be together and to do those things. And also, we have many different groups of friends, and we do a lot with them. We have some that we are associated through serving in bishoprics. We have some that are from our childhood. We have been friends our whole life, and we do stuff with them. And we have other friends and cousins and stuff like that we do a lot with. And so we just make it a priority that we do things together that way, and it seems to work.
It has worked, right? Yes.
Yeah. Just doing things as a family. We have built us as a couple have built 5 homes with our family all helping. We have our girls, again, cleaning the houses every day, as we've built the homes to now we have built every one of our kids a home.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's a family affair, and it gets tough sometimes, especially when all of our 5 kids have their families, and they have things going, and we've had some, our family's not perfect. We've had some rifts, and we've had to mellow those out, but our kids have been very good. I think to see that family's important, and couples, being a married couple is important. So making that a priority, making family a priority, I think is the big thing.
So we'll switch gears here, I guess, back to Lehi Roundup Week and stuff like that, kind of end on the fun note here. But anything you're looking forward to with Lehi Roundup? I mean, obviously you guys love the rodeo, you love the parade. Is all your kids able to come to this? Is this a family thing? They're able to, do they all live close by, I guess, then?
Yes.
Okay.
We hope to have as many of our grandkids riding with us in the wagon on Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want as many of them. Some will be in the parade because we have horses and we have ponies. And so some might be walking their ponies and things like that. But we want the grandkids to be able to be with us.
Good.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the.
I'm sure it's again
that part.
Family affair.
It's a family.
Yeah.
Family is very important to us.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the I don't know that it's a hard thing. Our family does 2 major campings a year. Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend. So our family is headed west today and tomorrow. There'll be 50 people out there.
Wow.
Which is normal for us.
Yeah.
But we'll be this way.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And
that's
hard.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
Sure.
When we know all our grandkids are going to be out there,
Yeah.
and they've already, and we're not there
Yeah.
to be with them.
One of the sacrifices of being a missionary,
Yes,
I guess, right?
it is.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway, it's not forever. It's just for 2 times.
You keep telling yourself that. It's only 2 times. It's only 2
2
times.
times. Yeah.
But just being the week of celebration, we won't be able to come down until Wednesday.
Sure. Okay.
That was kind of one of the funny things that when they came to us and said, hey, you've been nominated as Grand Marshal, and we says, now that we're serving a mission, right? And
Yeah.
they says, well, we've already taken care of that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mike Southwick had already called our mission president and got it approved that we could be down for the city celebration. So
Okay.
we will come down Wednesday afternoon
Okay.
and be here for the weekend. And then Sunday morning, we'll try and hurry and be back up for church on the mountain on Sunday morning.
Back to work.
Back to work.
Back to work. What, there's going to be a lot of people lining the streets that day then as you guys walk down. Any message, anything you want them to know as you pass by?
That we consider this a great honor. Our comment was, we're too young for this.
We don't deserve it.
Sure.
Usually they're older, like in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. We're only 63.
Sure.
And I was like, surely there's more people older than us that
And more
deserve
deserving.
Sure.
this great honor. And they said, we have chosen you for this year. And so we are very humbled by it, and we're very touched. And we would do just about anything for the city, We love Lehi, and we've loved raising our family here, and we've loved serving the community. And we just hope that our kids will continue to serve their communities where they're at. Now, all of them live here, and that they will be an asset to their communities and towns that they live in. I think it's very important to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's happening. Our sons are, like she said, our oldest son and his wife are over one of the concession stands at the rodeo, and that takes up a lot of time. Our middle son is coaching a lot of baseball and a lot of basketball. Our youngest son lives in Wallsburg, and he's heavily involved in the community there in Wallsburg. And our daughters their kids are still younger, so
Sure.
it'll come with them too.
Yeah. They're doing more work in the walls
Yeah.
of their own home, right?
Right now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
as we end here, any, if you were to boil this down to one thing for listeners, what one thing do you want people to be left with as we end this about your story?
I think we're a little bit different as far as we've known each other so long, and not a lot of couples end up like we did. Yeah, there's a lot that can be friends and everything, but to get married and that kind of thing, and be married for 42 years as we have been, and that to me is something that makes us a little bit different.
Sure. But
just being proud of where you're from, and being willing to help out in the community. We've been told as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that we need to be involved in our community, and that's what helps the community stay good, is being involved in your community, no matter what it is. There's lots to do, PTA, there's all kinds of stuff. Take the time and serve.
In whatever area that is.
Yep.
Love that.
Serve or volunteer.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many programs out there that need volunteers, and service in the school. You can be a reading grandmother. You can, there's just so many things of where you can give of your time to help other people. And I wish more people would do that.
Sure.
And make that kind of a priority for them in their life, because it does bring, whatever you give, it comes back to you tenfold, and you're helping somebody else.
Love it. Thank you, Keith and Suzanne, for coming on and talking to us about yourselves and about Lehi, about what you're doing. I think this has been very good for a lot of people, and so look forward to seeing you on the parade.
Yeah.
So
we'll wave.
Sounds good. I bet you will.
We've been being taught by our 18-month-old granddaughter how to wave.
Perfect.
She doesn't wave like this. It's like this.
That is a perfect thing that an 18 months can teach you.
I've never seen a baby do that.
Yeah.
It's always like this,
Yeah.
But no, she's always done this.
She's got it down.
Yeah.
She's practicing for her day.
Yeah.
She's ready.
We're taking note of that.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.